Okay, the protagonist in my Discount Detective series is a female PI. Now, since it's a murder mystery, there's always at least one body. There are stakeouts. There are investigations, interviews with suspects, and sometimes a dangerous situation. But I have to live with these characters on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted my main character to be grounded in her real life. And for that reason, today what I want to read to you is not something that talks about the murder, but that illustrates her relationships, some of the primary relationships she has. The one with her very best friend and colleague, Yuri Webster, with her mother, who happens to live upstairs in their carriage house, which is sometimes a little iffy, and her two children, Mara and Jason, both preteens. Shortly after the evening news, it happened, an event that would change our lives. A barking dog shattered the silence of early evening. It barked and barked right outside our front door. Under normal circumstances, I would have simply gone out to see what was happening. But for all we knew, it was a trap. What kind, I wasn't sure. Jason and Mara both wanted to take a look. Then Mom came down to complain, and I finally got up the courage to see what the commotion was all about. When I opened the door a crack, a black, moist nose tried to pry the door open more. The barking changed to a whining. "It's a dog, Mom," Jason said. "He wants in." That much was obvious, but why? "Oh, just open the damn door," Mom said. She grabbed the doorknob, and a medium-sized black and white dog came bounding in and ran right into Jason's outstretched arms. I was staring at Jason, trying to figure out what was happening, while he rubbed the dog's head and buried his face in the dog's neck fur. That's why I didn't notice the dark figure looming in our doorway until Mom said, "You might as well come in, the damage is done." When I saw Yuri there, all I could think of to say was, "You didn't." Yuri at least had the decency to look guilty. Well, I knew Jason wanted a puppy, and when my neighbor moved out and abandoned his dog, he raised his eyebrows looking for approval that I denied him with a glare. I thought since this guy is already house trained, he looked down at Jason and the dog. He's had his shots, he's been neutered, and he's cute. "He is cute," Mara said as she patted him on the back. "What's his name?" The dog looked up. One ear flopped forward, the other stood straight up, as if he was anxiously awaiting Yuri's answer. "I'm not sure. I never paid any attention." "We'll have to figure that one out," Jason said. "Max. He looks like a Max." The dog stared blankly at Jason. "How about Gizmo?" Jason waited, but the dog didn't respond. "Bo?" Mara ventured. Still no response. "Thor," Jason tried again. "Spike?" Mara said. "Tucker." "Duke." "He doesn't look like a Duke," Jason said firmly. "Well, he doesn't look like a Tucker either," Mara countered. The dog sat down and watched while Jason and Mara sparred. I knew that I needed to nip this in the bud right away before the naming ceremony ended and the dog officially became part of the family. "Jason," I began, but Mom cut me off. "There's no reason why he couldn't have a dog. It might be reassuring." The dog turned toward her, and she took a step back. "As long as you keep him downstairs," she added. I looked at the kids. "Who's going to feed him and clean up after him?" Just as I anticipated, Jason said, "I'll do that, Mom. He's my dog." Everyone was staring at me, waiting for me to give in. And even though I knew Jason would soon tire of the feeding and cleaning up, I felt like there was only one answer. "We'll give him a try." Mara and Jason whooped and the dog leapt up and started barking. "For a week," I added, trying to look firm. Unless he bit one of them, I knew in my heart that a week would only make it more difficult to get rid of him. I wondered if a tiny bite would leave a scar.
Great. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. All right. So I think we're going to get started on our questions now. And so my first question is, who or what has inspired your writing?
Well, I hate to give the cliche answer, but like so many female authors, I was a Nancy Drew addict when I was young. I envied the people who actually purchased books, and I had to get mine from the library, but that was the start. And I've just been a reader all my life.
Great. Yeah, I was a big Nancy Drew fan growing up too. We had a bunch in our library. Um, so speaking of Nancy Drew, who are some other favorite authors and books in your genre? And then maybe outside of your genre as well. I'm always curious to know about authors, favorite authors.
Well, I have been looking at, I like humor in mysteries as well as just in books generally. And so I have been looking at the range of humor in mysteries and have found that I am very eclectic when it comes to reading anything, um, whether it's mystery or not. And I like the extreme kookiness of a Carl Hyacin. I absolutely adore Lisa Lutz's Spellman series. Um, I also like more serious books, though, like the Ellie Griffiths series. Um, and you know, I also, and I'm just looking at, I wrote down something, so I'm cheating a little here. I also like things that are in settings. I love the Donna Leon series set in Venice. And in fact, when we made a trip there, one of the things we did was we took out the map and we located all the murder sites in Venice, and it was
Oh,
just great
wow.
fun.
That sounds like a lot of
So,
fun.
but I'm a member of 3 book clubs. So one reads a nonfiction, focused mainly on the environment. One is focuses on murder mysteries, and then the third reads serious literature. And so in the serious literature side, um, I like things that are a little offbeat. Like I know everybody's favorite Colson Whitehead book was the Underground Railroad. Mine was his Intuitionist, which is all metaphorical, but it's still about the same issues. Um, I like things that are more standard. Like I loved A Gentleman in Moscow. I just thought that was one of the greatest all-time books I've read. Um, and I guess I'm open to reading almost anything. I just read The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek. And the reason I like that kind of book is that I learned something about a time period, about a society. Uh, so I'm just pretty eclectic in what I like.
Yeah, those all sound really good. I actually just read Slain by Colson Whitehead for class, and I haven't heard of some of the mystery authors you mentioned, but definitely going to add those to my list. So my next question is, how much research do you do when writing a book, and does it really depend on the book, or do you like to do a lot of research or just a little research in general?
I absolutely love research. When I did my dissertation, everybody else that was working on their dissertations were complaining because they didn't want to do the research. They weren't having fun with the writing. I loved the research. When, what I've tried to do is I've tried to start each book with a kernel of something that I know a little bit about. Like in my first Discount Detective uh, mystery, I actually had visited a commune. I actually knew some people who were survivalists, but there was so much I didn't know. So I got to research that and find out as much as I could. Some of it was a little appalling. I had also spent quite a bit of time on the island where I had set it. So there was some knowledge that I brought to it at the same time that I had to do research for it. For the Campaigning Can Be Deadly, I had actually done speech writing for a year, as well as worked on a congressional campaign. So I brought that and the incident of stolen yard signs to it. But, there's a lot more to campaigns from the inside that you have to research. And the other thing that I research a lot, because Yuri, one of my favorite characters, is a trivia addict. And so I have, since I started writing those books, I have become a trivia addict myself in looking up little fun things that are just fun to know that really don't matter because no one else cares about them.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Another question I have is, what was your favorite scene to write in this book? And maybe no, not spoilers, but just something that you enjoyed writing.
Well, I think that it wasn't a particular scene, but what I really enjoy is I enjoy the banter between Cameron and Yuri. So whether they're on a stakeout or whether they're trying to decide whether to do something slightly illegal, it's that banter and that exchange back and forth that I really enjoy writing.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a lot of fun to read as a reader. And I also do write, so it's definitely fun to write that as well. How long does it usually take you to write a book? Does it really depend on the book? Like, how long did it take you to write Campaign and Can Be Deadly?
I think it was about, from start to finish, it was about 6 months. And I had an idea of what I wanted to write. And then I just went through my usual process. I already had the characters too because of the first book. So because that's where I usually start. And then I figured out the scenes that I wanted. And I will confess one thing, that the murderer changed very late in the game. So, which is something that doesn't usually happen for me. I usually plan pretty carefully, but I had someone read it and they made some comments, and I thought, hmm. So the murderer became somebody entirely different.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I definitely enjoy that part of the writing process as well, and hearing about it is very interesting. What else? What's your writing routine like? Are you like a nighttime writer? Do you like to get up early in the morning and write? Like, where do you write? Like, you write outside or indoors? I'm
I,
curious to hear that as well.
I am actually a morning person, but it takes me a couple of hours before I feel like sitting down and writing. I do lots of little chores and things first, but I write every morning, and it's something I look forward to. Some of my ideas come late at night, but the actual writing I do usually in the morning. I do some editing late afternoon if I, feel like it, or if I'm not doing something else. Um, but I'm a morning writer.
Right. That's cool. I definitely write more so at night. So, like,
Yeah.
I cannot imagine getting up super early,
Well,
but that's very cool that
yeah,
you,
and I do write in my office, and
right.
I have an author friend who writes in her car
Oh,
because
that
she gets
sounds like,
away from everything, and
yeah,
I can't imagine that. I just can't imagine that.
that's actually, I guess, a pretty good idea. You get away from everything,
Hmm.
no distractions.
Yeah,
So when did you start writing? Like, did you start writing really young, or did you start like seriously writing, or even just like not seriously, but just enjoying the writing process? When did you like start that? Was it young or older?
I didn't write mysteries when I was younger. I wrote poetry and things like that. Little short stories. Then one year we decided to take a year off and go sailing, and we ended up tied to docks a lot for a variety of reasons I won't go into. And we both started, my husband and I both started writing then. He also writes mysteries, but he writes more nonfiction than mysteries. Um, and I didn't get anything published at that time, so I set it aside. Then I enjoyed writing, academic things and articles on management, and I did a column and, all of that. Didn't write mysteries until I was able to go back full time. And I've just loved it. I don't know. I wish I would have done it years ago, but I guess I wasn't someone who, I didn't have a passion to be a mystery writer. I had a passion to read mysteries. And then when I finally got a chance, I would say now I have a passion for the writing too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of friends I have and authors I've heard of, they sort of develop that passion for like a specific genre later on. Like they test out different things and they end up landing on their favorite genre later on.
Well, I always think of Rex Stout, and I don't know if you have read any of the Nero Wolfe books, but he wanted to write the great American novel. And so he was so smart. He set up some banking system so that he was able to make enough money to retire. I think he was in his early 40s. And then he sat down to write the great American novel and realized he didn't have the talent to do that. And he started writing those mysteries, the Nero Wolfe series, that just took off, and now they're classics. And I think for me, I would have liked to have written the great American novel, but I knew I couldn't. And so when I finally thought about, what could I write that would be fun, that maybe my voice would be appropriate for, that's when I really got serious. And I wish I had thought about it more earlier. But
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. So my last question is something I'm curious about. So do you ever really like read your book reviews, or do you tend to stay away from that? Because I know some authors, like
yeah,
I've heard some mixed opinions on whether people read their book reviews as authors.
yeah, I was a management consultant and trainer for years, and we always asked for feedback, and we'd have to decide, if we didn't read the feedback, you couldn't improve, right? So I was kind of ready for good and bad feedback. And even though everyone says you shouldn't read the reviews because then you'll get upset if there's something bad, I still feel like you may learn something from them. And my disappointment has been that I don't think most reviews of mysteries actually teach you anything, because they either like you or they don't like you, and they don't give you enough information to really, make some changes. I've only had one that I've wanted to reply to, and I have her email address. And from time to time, I keep thinking about it, because she was so off on all of the details, that I've always wanted to just ask her, did you really read the book? But that's kind of snarky, so I can't do it. But if I ever meet her, I'm going to ask.
Yeah, I can imagine that if I wrote something and someone just totally got it wrong, I would be annoyed, but gotta gotta be
Well,
polite.
and one of the things that happens to be true on Amazon is that you can get unsolicited, what they call Vine reader reviews. And the Vine readers are the Amazon Primo readers. And those Vine reviews usually go to the top. And I have been lucky enough to have really good Vine reviews, but I have a friend who has written a wonderful book. It's nonfiction, it's a memoir, and a Vine reviewer, just hated it,
Oh
and she
no.
couldn't get rid of it, and because
Darn.
they didn't want to take it away. And so I went on and said that I thought it was unfair, but I think it's still lurking there.
Mm. Yeah, so those are my questions, but I really enjoyed hearing all about your process and what you're like as a writer. That was really interesting to know. So I'm just going to, do you have anything else you'd like to say or?
No, but I have some questions for you, but these don't
Sure,
need to be recorded.
sure, I can stop the recording then. All right.